Go ahead. Okay. Hello. Welcome to the 2023 Peace and Progress Dialogue, Community Dialogue, as we are celebrating Juneteenth. I thank all of you for being with us in the audience today, as well as those of you who are watching us from home. I am very much aware that not only do we have an at-home audience here in the city of Kyle, but also in the area, in the state, as well as other states, because I have several colleagues who told me that they would be watching tonight. So thank you all for joining us. We have an excellent panel of judges, excellent panel of citizens tonight who are going to have a great discussion in regards to the idea of peace and progress. Now, Peace and Progress, we started this project back in 2020. It was right after the horrible George Floyd incident where everyone was on edge. And we had a previous city council person who thought it would have been a great idea to actually pull folks in together into one room and let's talk. And since then, the summer of 2020, we have been doing Peace and Progress community dialogues, roughly 3 a year. So I am honored to be here as the moderator because previously I had been on the other side, being on the dais as one of the panelists. So with that, I would like to introduce the panelists to you this evening. We have Miss Tiffany Alexander. Tiffany is a mathematics teacher at Ideal School here in Kyle. Welcome, Tiffany. We have Michael Clark, who is a local business owner as well as the sports coach at Durrell Academy. Thank you for being with us, Michael. We have Marcie Curl, a former Navy veteran and a current spiritual leader as well as the First Lady at the Rock Church, Kyle. Thank you, Miss Marcie, for being here with us. We have Craig Hudson. Craig is a digital media and AV production teacher, STEM teacher at Lehman High School. Thank you for being here with us, Craig. We have Stephanie Murray, who is a local resident. She's a second-year UT student, and she's also is on one of the commissions here for the city of Kyle. Thank you, Stephanie, for being with us this evening. And we have Alexander, as we call him, Alex Villalobos, who is the Chief of Staff for Hays County. Thank you, Alex, for joining us this evening. So as you can see, we have a diverse group of people who are going to talk to us, and we're going to have a dialogue, have a discussion. They have been given a series of questions. We will put them up on the screen when it is time for them to answer the questions. Now, how this works, for those of you that are listening maybe for the first time, is as the question has been put up on the screen, the dais folks have an option to say something about the question, answer the question, make a comment, or listen. So if they're going to say something or have a comment, they're going to hold up this paddle, and this paddle will indicate to me that I would like to say something about the question. They may choose just to listen. After the question has been answered, it may be that they may change their mind and wave their little paddle and say, oh, I want to ask a question, I want to add to that. They're welcome to do that. There are no wrong answers here. There's just a dialogue, your perspective. Some of the questions are, I think, very general in regards to our thinking, and others of those are a little thought-provoking and may bring up some interesting comments. So we will see. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, I also wanted to mention, those of you who are at home, we will have you engaging with us also as we are going to answer questions. There's a series of questions, and as you can see on the screen, it says visit menti.com and use a code. So you're going to go to menti.com on your phone, your computer, etc. it will ask you for a code. And once you've put that code in, you will then be connected to our system. And our system will then allow you to answer a specific question. We have designed some questions for the audience to be able to engage in, whether you're watching us at home or with friends or wherever, or if you're here in the audience. And so when you answer the question, they will show up on the screen. And as the questions are being answered, the answers will then show up on the screen, and they'll just start scrolling up and then scrolling down so we can get a chance to see what the answers are. It may also be that some of our folks on the dais may want to respond to one of the questions one of the answers that is being put up on the screen. So we will have a little time to dialogue if time allows us to do that. So before we get started, I wanted to do something very special. We actually had a Juneteenth essay contest here in the Kyle Buda area. And we opened it up to students in primarily Hayes Consolidated School District, but homeschoolers in the areas, the private schools in the area were invited. And so with that said, we have the high school winner of the Juneteenth essay contest for 2023. His name is Kimon Iglesias. He's now in the 10th grade. He is at Johnson High School, and he is in our audience. Come on, would you please stand for us? Thank you very much, and very proud of him. He will actually be getting a formal presentation tomorrow at the Buda Juneteenth event, which will be at the big pavilion off of Main Street, and he'll have some surprises that he doesn't know about. So congratulations, Mr. Iglesias. All righty, so with that, we're going to move to our first question. Our first question, the theme for June 2023 Peace and Progress Community Dialogue is Juneteenth, a community celebration. What are your thoughts on this theme? Again, the question is, the theme for June 2023 Peace and Progress Community Dialogue is Juneteenth, a community celebration. What are your thoughts on this theme? If you would like to speak up, please hold up your paddles for me. Tiffany. All right. Thank you very much. All righty. So just so you know that our panel is sitting on the dais in alphabetical order. So that's what we went with. There's no hierarchy or anything like that. And it's just whatever your last name is. And which is interesting because when I was growing up, my maiden name was Daniels, and then I got married to a Westbrook, so I went to the other end of the spectrum. I should have thought about that. But oh well. So I'm going to start with Miss Tiffany Alexander first in her response. Miss Tiffany. It says, hit it. It should be green. Lightly touch it. You got it?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, well, thank you for inviting me to come here. I'm very excited to be here. My thoughts on it is that a lot of times we have a voice, but we don't always have the opportunity to be heard. So being able to come together as a community, as a diverse group, to be able to be heard on our perspective of this event, of Juneteenth, can be a monumental thing where we can all be heard, we can give our perspective on our own experiences, and being diverse is amazing. So this could be something monumental that we come together as a community and not so much as being afraid to speak out, and we can be heard. So it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. Mrs. Curl, you're next.
Okay. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for the opportunity that you give me to be on this amazing panel. One thing that I could say that with the theme, what it speaks to me personally is hope. It speaks hope because I've had an opportunity to sit in the audience and I have seen the impact it has already made. And so to be able to be here today, I reflect on things that have transpired after these discussions, such as one of the things that took place that I thought was very powerful is our college campus ministry, Vision and Progress, met with the Kyle Police Department, and they had very transparent discussions, and that transpired after this. So what this is to me is a spark for future impactful encounters within the community, amongst leaders, amongst just a unification opportunity for everybody in the community.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate that. All righty. Mr. Craig, Mr. Hudson, tell us your perspective.
Yes, ma'am. Also, thank you again. Greetings. So, when you think about the word community, really, what does that mean to you? What makes up a community? So, for it to be a community celebration, if we're going to be a community, a true community that's going to affect change and bring forth change, then we have to celebrate the up and downs of the community, of the culture, of each race, of each creed, for that to be community. Because without everyone that makes up the community, you don't have community. So I think it's a brilliant thing, but it's needed, especially in this day and time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Miss Stephanie.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. And I would like to say that I think this is a really nice thing to see that Juneteenth is being called a community celebration. I think that somewhere along the way, maybe within the news media, who knows, it's kind of been seen as something that isn't necessarily a celebration for all. And I really don't know what it is about. It's either a lack of education or ignorance towards history, but I really do like seeing that it's acknowledging that it wasn't just a step forward for African Americans, but a step forward for every American who would ever live here to know that this is really an important holiday. And I enjoyed seeing that within the city of Kyle's Juneteenth celebration that we were celebrating African American history, and there was a diverse group of people going and seeing the artifacts from African American culture, and it really made me happy to see the performances within that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Alex.
Well, again, thank you. It's an honor to be here again to continue to have this discourse with the community. And to me, the theme is all-encompassing, right? It's a reflection. It's an acknowledgement. It's to celebrate resilience where there is, celebrate contributions where they are. It's to identify that we have so much more to go. It's to recognize legacy. And some of those legacy issues are some of the things that created where we are today, which is the legacy of slavery, systematic issues in our government, and education, and health care, and housing, and criminal justice. But most importantly, it's the discourse. We have to have this conversation on a consistent basis so that we can continue to create a critical understanding to drive towards improvement and support that's necessary for our communities. Every community is different. Every policy is different. Every system is different. But I believe that we're having this discourse and gaining better and more specific empathy and understanding and knowledge, then we can do better through this discourse.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All righty, well, so as you can see, those of you in the audience and those of you who are watching us for the first time, this is how this is going to work. Questions will be asked, and we will then provide an opportunity for our panelists to answer them. If by some chance we are getting towards the end of a particular question and you choose not to speak out. You just wanted to listen. And now you say, wait, I have something to say. Do let me know. If you have something you want to add to what someone else has said, by all means, raise your hand, a finger, or just give me some kind of signal. I will then call on you, work with your microphone, and then go ahead and add to whatever you'd like to. So again, this is a dialogue. All right, that was our first question. So now here's our second question. They're starting to get a little deeper now, by the way, as you saw when I sent them to you. So question number 2. In your opinion, has the federalization of Juneteenth as a national holiday changed or enhanced the observance of June 19th? I'll say that again. In your opinion, has the federalization of Juneteenth as a national holiday changed or enhanced the observance of the date June 19th? Those who wish to speak, please raise your paddle. Everybody, all right. Sounds good. All righty, so, thank you. So everybody's going to speak. So you know what? I'm going to start on this end with Alex.
Thanks again for the question. I think it's an enhancement. It marks a date of significance, right? I think any system, any model, anything that has goals and is driving towards some type of unity and understanding has to build some kind of consistency and consensus by recognizing a significant date, a starting point, right? This is fairly new, but I think it's a start. It's a very rough start. It still requires quite a bit of work, but I think it's a start to better education about the legacy and the history and where we are and where we're going towards. It's building cultural awareness, cultural competency, cultural fluency, all those things that revolve around pride and legacy of history. And it maintains a historic framework or point that we can always revert back to on that day. But I think the most important thing when we talk about all those things, awareness, competency, and also advocacy, is that having these dates, they're significant, yes, but we need to be working towards greater significance to the date by employing different systems to help better support and create other opportunities as a whole. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alex. All right, Miss Stephanie?
I definitely do think that Juneteenth being recognized as a national holiday definitely did enhance its observance. I think that before it was a national holiday, people may have known what Juneteenth was, but they may not have necessarily had a day to sit back and reflect on the purpose of it and the historical significance. And dare I say that it hasn't even become commercialized yet. Since it's such a new holiday, the federal government has acknowledged its historical significance, and right now we're in a really special time period that we get to decide what a Juneteenth celebration will look like. And I hope it doesn't become one of those holidays that's commercialized like Memorial Day or Labor Day, that it's a day that people will sit back and understand or educate themselves on different issues, or maybe even volunteer within their community.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Great.
All righty. So I feel like not only has it enhanced, it has brought some change. It has at least opened the door to a necessary conversation that was not being had before. It has sparked interest of students as an educator, giving students, hey, we have an essay competition, this is what's going on. It caused several students who never even heard of Juneteenth from different cultures to actually, hey, I don't want to compete, but I want to research. And I'm going to come back and tell you what I learned. So it has brought some change, and it has enhanced. But most importantly, it opened a very important door that needed to be opened.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Marcie?
Yes, I agree with the rest of what's been said already. I think, too, that it has definitely brought awareness. It has shed light on Juneteenth. It's giving everyone an opportunity to educate themselves more and be aware of what Juneteenth is. I'm not from Texas, so My first understanding about Juneteenth, I was in high school. We had a guest speaker by the name of Deborah Duncan that came to Del Valley High School and shared with us what Juneteenth was. And it was, I think it was during Black History Month that she came. So I think that it's important because even though, like he said, Mr. Villalobos said, it's a rough start, I think that as we progress, it's not just going to be a long weekend and barbecues. It's going to be an opportunity to educate the generations beneath us because they're our future leaders. And so they need to be aware of this so they can continue to make changes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, Michael.
I'd like to, sorry. I agree with everyone before me on it enhancing it because, like, I'm from Chicago, so, like, it's a totally different state and setup. And, like, when I was coming up, I don't recall it being a big deal. Like, I'm sure you guys might have learned about it here or heard about it more, but, like, I don't recall growing up hearing about it as much. I was familiar with the dates and what took place because I had people that at home that taught me these types of things, our history. But in regards to schooling, I'm like, oh, okay, it's just another day. It means something, but when I came here, it hit different. Like, my family accidentally ran into a Juneteenth celebration last year just going to get COVID shots, and we actually went there and celebrated. And the reaction from my kids, and then I'm teaching them what it means, it meant a lot to us. You know what I mean? So it's good that we're having this open dialogue about all of our history because, at the end of the day, whether you're Black, whatever your race is, we're all in the same country. So we all have to be on the same page in order to live and be peaceful, So that's what I think.
Thank you, appreciate that. Miss Tiffany.
I had trouble with the mic.
Yeah.
So hopefully, the way I look at it, I'm hoping that it brings more change. Being in education, my students, I'm teaching summer school right now, so they were more excited that we don't have to come to school, we don't have to have summer school on Monday than it was about the celebration. And so I asked some of them, like, do you know what it is? And they did not. They had no clue. And my school is very diverse. So they don't know what Juneteenth is. And so I'm a math teacher, so history is not my cup of tea. I really don't like history. I like numbers. So I didn't really get into the depth of what it was, but I did give them a brief description of what it is. And so just them not understanding, hopefully, eventually we can put it more into Black History Month and giving them more of an understanding of what Juneteenth is, so that way they can, even being diverse, they can dig deeper into it and understand, like, this is a celebration. This represents freedom. So I would like to see it be more enhanced in education, just not them being excited about not going to school.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. All righty then. Let's see. I think we're going to do a Mentimeter question. We're going to put that up. And Mentimeter question number 1, staff, the one that says, in your opinion, is the one I'd like to put up for everyone. Okay. And so our wonderful city communications department is who are referred to as staff, is doing all of our legwork for us. And so they are going to post a question. At the top of the screen, it says menti.com. You're going to put that in. And then once you get to that program, it's going to ask for a user code, which is 71368316. Again, it's on the screen. Then once you're into the system, this question you will see, and then you will be able to answer the question. It's a short answer, so don't get to dissertation mode in writing us something. Answer, a statement or two will be just fine. And then we're going to see what our audience has to say. The question is, in your opinion, are younger African Americans and non-African Americans adequately aware of the history of Juneteenth, in your opinion? What do you think? Why not? So while that is being posted, I'm going to put up another question for our panelists. So we're going to let some of those answers pop up on the screen. And panelists, we'll put this up in just a second, but I want you thinking about question number 3. Question number 3 to you, while we're waiting on answers on our Mentimeter. What word or two would describe your impressions / feelings of what our society and relations within our communities need now more than ever? Again, the question is, what word or two would describe your impressions, feelings of what our society and relations within our community need now more than ever? So be thinking about that question for a second. If you are interested in speaking to that one, please raise your, everybody? Okay, good. I like this group this year. Everybody has something to say. All right. Okay, I want to switch us over to Minty for a second to see what's up there. And we may have to give it a little bit more time. We've got some responses. So, my panelists, would you take a look at the the answers that are on the screen that came from our audience, whether they are here with us in person or whether they happen to be in their cozy homes or etc., watching us from afar? Oh, there's more. Panelists, if there is something on the screen that pops out to you as something you want to respond to, do let me know that. There may be one or two that you say you might want to have an opinion on or give us some feedback on. And then if not, then we'll go to our question in just a minute. So as you're looking at these 6, would you, staff, would you drop it down so we can see the ones in front? There's some on top. There we go. Okay, Michael. Okay, I saw Michael's, okay, Marcie, Alex, and Craig. All righty. Okay, so we have 4 of our panelists who want to make a comment about something they saw on the screen from our audience. Let's see. Michael, we'll start with you.
Okay. I agree with a couple of them in regards to the answer saying no, that the kids aren't aware of what the holiday is and intentionally or whatever. I agree with that because I've also dealt with that growing up in high school. I was taking African American history, and I remember my uncle. He only has, I think, had a high school education, like only 1 or 2 couple years out of high school, but he was very knowledgeable with history. And I would always, like, he would give me information and leave it up to me to go look to see if it's true or not. That was our little game we played, because I liked history as well. And I remember looking something up. He told me about a section I was learning, and my teacher removed me from the class and told me I can't say some of the stuff I'm saying, although it's true, because he's not allowed to teach that. And if I continue to raise my hand and get called on and say things that I've learned outside of class, then he would have to keep removing me from class every time I do that. So
Interesting.
I agree with that what they're saying about it, the kids not knowing the history fully.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you for that story. Marcie.
What popped out at me was no, still too divided on the education front based upon race. And this is so true because we see right now the divide. If you're watching the news, it's something that is going on right now as far as what we should be teaching our children in schools right now, and the attempts to how shall I say this, eradicate history from the education system by not telling and speaking the truth about our history. I say our history because it's the nation's history, not just Black history. So I think that that stood out the most because it's something that we're dealing with right now, and it really shouldn't be a divide with this because, like I said before, it is about our history, and the only way that we can not repeat history is make sure that everybody is educated on the history so we can move forward and progress forward from this.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. All righty, we had, let's see what next. Was it Alex?
I think the common theme here, and then also with the panel members that we're in this discussion, is that we're talking about a lack of fluency. It's not in education. It's not there driven so that we can really understand and learn on a regular basis from beginning to end what that fluency is so we can build legacy. This is a newer federalized holiday, so it hasn't been in place long enough for us to build legacy. There's tons of legacy in our history, but we haven't built it in our educational systems and our overall government systems enough to build enough legacy for that demographic to really understand the importance and to grasp it when they need to, and to utilize that in their everyday lives when they're having good conversations with people in the community.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Craig.
All right, and I would agree with what everyone is saying. Like, how do you choose to rewrite history? How can you rewrite history? And I agree with it's not being taught. It's not. I didn't learn about Juneteenth, and I grew up in Texas. I didn't learn about Juneteenth till I got into high school, my senior year in high school. That's when I learned about Juneteenth. I grew up in Texas. Study Texas history, and it's not mentioned there. And it's very important that we know not everybody was free on July 4th. Yes, we celebrated. I celebrate July 4th. Throw one of the largest parties in the area. Love July 4th because I love my country. But not everybody was free. Not everybody got to live that life. So if we really say, hey, we're one nation and we're going to stand by what the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence really say, how can we stand by that if we don't celebrate the good, bad, and the ugly of our history? Just like First Lady was saying, how do we stop history from repeating itself if we erase it and don't use that as an example? Hey, this was a dark time in our nation, but this is how we can assure not to go back there. Because I assure you, you start erasing history and no one stands up and say, hey, don't do that, then we'll see history repeat itself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All righty, I do appreciate your comments on that first Menti questions. And those of you in the audience, whether you're here or far, thank you for answering that first question. This is really a good way for us to have a great exchange and interaction, not only on the dais, but also with all of those who are watching this event with us. All right, I'm going to take the panel back to question number 3. You've had a little time to digest and think about your answer. And I'm going to read the question again, and then I'll see who's ready to, well, actually, let's see, it was question number 3. Looks like everybody was ready. Okay, so the question again is, what word or two would describe your impressions, feelings of what our society and relations within our community needs now more than ever? And I'm going to start with Stephanie.
Okay, there we go. I think right now, the word that comes to my mind is listening. And I feel like, especially within the city of Kyle, in our community, there's a big push between the people who have lived here forever and then the ones who are new. And I think that there's people constantly criticizing the changes that we're seeing within our community. And honestly, I don't think that anybody's going to want to move here if we're constantly criticizing and not acknowledging that we have to have amenities to sustain a growing population. And like, for instance, I know that there's a lot of people who are saying that like they don't like the new restaurants or they don't like the new businesses coming or new apartments. And honestly, I don't think that's feasible to think like that, because we need affordable housing, we need healthier food options, less fast food, and I think we need to develop the east side of Kyle in a more culturally conscious way.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. All righty, let's see. Everybody was willing to speak, so I'm going to go with Tiffany next.
My word would be togetherness. I'm thinking more on our society. Like right now, we need to come together as one. We need to be as one. With everything that's happening in the world right now, with not everybody being treated equally, I think we need some togetherness. And it's weird because I think about a Michael Jackson song, like the "We Are the World" song. And I just think that's some of the things that we need right now, is to come together as one and just not treat people indifferent, I should say.
Okay, thank you. Yes, "We Are the World." That's a great analogy, the "We Are the World" song, which actually was created for World Hunger, but it was way more than that. Once it was actually out, it meant a lot to a lot of people. Thank you very much. All right, let's go with Michael. What's your word? How to?
Surprisingly, I had the same word, togetherness.
Okay.
I just feel like with all the different things going on in the country, it doesn't seem like it's a us thing. It seems like it's a them thing. So when it's Uvalde shooting, or it's the shooting at this, near Dallas, it didn't seem like it was like us as a whole. We all should be sad. We all should take time to, love on our loved ones, because it could have been you. You just don't know. And anytime it happens, it never feels like it's a us thing. I mean, I feel it personally. I put myself in their shoes because that's just the type of person I am. But it always seems as if it's a them thing, and then the next day or whatever, it seems like everybody's back doing whatever. It doesn't seem like it's us as a whole. Like we're all affected by it, even though it's not like in our faces directly. But it's a us thing, not like them or that city or that state, So
Yeah.
I would say togetherness.
Okay, thank you. That's also a good way of describing that, your togetherness. Okay, let's go with let's see, Alex. What's your word?
I think it's just a play of togetherness, but the word unity.
Okay.
And the unity is just coming together, working towards common goals, and despite our differences, despite all of our differences, working on a common goal. We have to build that. I know it's systematic to building it, but I think that's very important. And then empathy. It's the empathy is the willingness to stand up for people who don't have a voice, even in light of and teaching and educating people about those marginalized populations and those oppressed populations, and gaining an understanding so we can work to benefit and to support and to create better change for all of us.
Okay, thank you. All right, Miss Marcie.
It's almost like it's a continuous theme up here, because my words were authentic community.
Okay.
And the reason I say authentic community is I feel like social media has disrupted that. You have the photo op. You have the what's trending on Twitter. You have, whatever's most popular, and I think it's really desensitized. I mean, especially during COVID, we were isolated. And I think that it's important to have authentic community, meaning checking on your neighbors. If you see something, say something. I think that has been diminished, and even more so because of the pandemic. People got used to just seeing the garage door close and not even checking on one another. So I really think authentic community is what we really need, especially now more than ever. And just like you were talking about the shootings, it should affect us all. It shouldn't be something that we've gotten desensitized to. And yet, unfortunately, we see mass shootings and it's just like we change the channel. We're desensitized from Amber Alerts because they come so often, but they really should be impacting us, and we should really be intentional about, okay, what can I do as an individual? Not just shaking our heads and saying, because that just basically means we're not going to do anything about it. But being intentional about how can I make change? How can I make a difference with this?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. And Craig.
All right, so I like what everyone said, but my two words would be unity and empathy as well. But I like that authentic community because that's important. But unity, that's very important to come together, to be unified. You know, how can we affect change if we won't get out and vote? Won't get our voices heard. We're bad about that. We won't even get out and vote to see change or even understand what's going on, but also empathy. I don't need you to feel sorry for me, but understand, you know, what it's like to be in my shoes sometimes, you know, understanding what it's like to be in each other's shoes because it's not easy. It's not easy. And being in education, it's not. You got to understand, you know, for those that are in a place of power, understand the position they're in, that sometimes they can't always go off of emotion. They have to go off what's best for the city or the state at that time. So empathy for our leaders, for one another, and that'll bring back that authentic community that we talk about. That'll bring that back. Unity, coming together, you know, because when one hurt, we all should hurt. You know, whether it's down the street or out of state, because again, like my brother said, it could be us. It could be us. I'm a teacher. It could be us. I've witnessed kids open the doors and let people in multiple times. Multiple people, and I'm running down the hall. Hey, no, stop, wait. Who is that? Do they have an ID? You could have just put us all in. So just understanding that it could be any of us. So unity and empathy.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your words. It seems like you really did have this theme going on, and I know you weren't talking to each other. But interesting how everybody was kind of like on that same playbook in regards to how right now, because that was the question, right now, what do we need? So thank you so much for that. Alrighty, so we are going to we're going to do another mentee question number 2. And the question that we're asking to our friends and neighbors and colleagues and those in the audience is, the word freedom has been used by some to symbolize Juneteenth. What word would you use to symbolize Juneteenth? Again, the word freedom has been used by some to symbolize Juneteenth. What word would you use to symbolize Juneteenth, audience, those here and abroad? And again, if you're just joining us and you want to answer this question, take your phone or your computer and go to menti, MENTI.com. Once you're there, it's going to ask for a code. That code is 71368316. And then this question will pop up and it will give you a space to answer the question. And we're looking for, what's that one word? And they are starting to come in. So thank you very much. While those are coming in, panel, I am going to prep you for question number 4. And it'll be up on the screen as we're collecting mentee So here's your question. It'll be up in a second. In the past 3 years, 2020 to 2023, there have been some major incidents in our country, in our state, that have made people think about human rights, social justice, the pursuit of happiness, education, well-being. What has stopped you in your tracks and left you with questions when you think about some of the major incidents that we have endured for just these past 3 years? Think about that for me and let me know if you want to answer. The question again is up on the screen. All right. All right, let's go back to Minty and see what we have from our audience before we answer question number 4. Okay. I see the word perseverance up twice. Interesting. I also see guacamole. Does that mean that we had bad avocado prices? I'm not sure what's going on with that. Thank you, whoever gave that to us. We do need to do a little bit of laughing here. Emancipation, politics, awareness, truth, a start of a new life, resilience, undervalued, opportunity, hope, progress, overlooked. There's perseverance again. Progress, so progress twice, perseverance 3 times. Emancipation. Okay, we'll come back to this one in a minute and see if we had any more words that popped up in the idea when you think about Juneteenth. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention about Juneteenth is I grew up in Galveston, Texas. I don't know if everybody knew that or not. I try to tell this story often. So growing up in Galveston, Texas, of course, where Juneteenth actually occurred, for those of us who didn't know that, that's where General Granger actually got off a ship. He stepped onto an area of land. It was not Ashton Villa, but it was over by the wharf area specifically. There is now a mural there that actually talks about that. It shows that. And he read this piece of paper, as my dear friend Anthony Davis did at the Juneteenth celebration this past Saturday, where he reenacted General Granger. And he said basically that slaves, you are free because you've been free. They just didn't tell you. All right, but listen, don't just up and leave and then scatter out into the wind. There's got to be a plan that needs to come up, and some folks stayed and some folks didn't. But the idea is that new communities started popping up. Now, what was interesting is I knew about Juneteenth since I was a kid, though Michael said something interesting, and that was I don't remember studying Juneteenth in 7th grade Texas history. And I have a photographic memory. I remember everything. It's a gift and a curse. So, but at any rate, knowing what we read in the book on Texas history, because you had a Texas history textbook, I don't remember anything in Juneteenth about it, but I do remember in our community, it was big, right? Whatever the 19th was, the barbecues and the telling the stories. We had programs and all of those kinds of things. And I thought Juneteenth was only celebrated in Galveston. Then I went to my undergrad alma mater and saw that Juneteenth was being celebrated in Dallas, in Fort Worth, in Denton. And I was like, oh, wow, they're just not just doing it back home. Okay. Then we start having friends who lived in other states who came to TWU, and they knew about it. And I was like, okay, this is bigger than what I thought. So as I've gotten older, I've seen more of a disperse of everyone understanding this idea of Juneteenth. And not only is it across the United States, but it's in other countries. And what has happened is with the migration of African Americans dispersing not only across the United States but into Canada and the southern countries and other countries, they're taking it with them. So it's becoming a worldwide thing. Now, how cool is that? Right? And so now we have the United States who has declared, well, this is now a national holiday. And so I think what Alex said, it's a young holiday and it's much to be molded. And we're the folks to do that, to go out and not only have a good meal and have a day off, but to teach our young people what this meant. And so that they know what they don't know, right? They know what they don't know. So anyway, I just want to throw that in there. We had a few more words that popped up. Finally, disenfranchisement, unchained, acknowledgement, truth. So thank you, audience, for sharing your thoughts with us about what symbolizes Juneteenth to you. So I'm going to take us to our question number 4. Everybody asked to say a little something about the question. I'll read it again. In the past 3 years, from 1920 to 2023, there have been some major incidents in our country, in our state, that has made people think about human rights, social justice, the pursuit of happiness, education, well-being. What has stopped you in your tracks and left you with questions as you think about these things that have happened in just this three-year period of time? So I think I'm going to start in the middle and then go to the left to the right. I'm going to start with Miss Marcie.
What has stopped me in my tracks are, I could say several things, but some of the ones that are really hitting close to home and that are really impacting our community in the city of Kyle, the Hayes County, is the fentanyl overdoses, as well as the mental health crisis, the mass shootings. These are things that are sticking out to me because they've hit close to home. I have a daughter that's in the school system, and as well as my husband, Pastor Curl, who is on several boards in the school system, and hearing the statistics on fentanyl overdoses and the age range is alarming. And I think that it's really incumbent upon us, like I said before, if we just shake our heads or bury our heads in the sand, this is becoming an epidemic. And it's something that we as a community have to be intentional about. If we see something, say something. And one of the things that I love about within our ministry, one of the things that we do have in the school system is an impact mentoring program. And this is a way that the kids can open up to their mentors and talk, because that could be the very thing that prevents them from the next overdose or a possibility of that even transpiring, because they're able to connect with their mentors. Because a lot of times, parents are working there's sad situations where children are with their loved ones and not necessarily with their parents due to personal situations that are going on. So I just wanted to share that, because I think that's important, to be able to reach out to these children in a way that they may not necessarily share with their parents, but they may share with a mentor. So that is a way that we can reach those children before it gets to a situation dire such as these overdoses that are transpiring. I also mentioned the suicide rate. The suicide rate, I was just watching ABC News, I think it was just yesterday, and I was sitting there with my nephew, and both of our jaws dropped, because ABC News reported between the ages of 10 and 24 that the suicide rate remained stable between 2001 and 2007, around 6.9 per 100,000. And then it said from 2011, the rate rose 60% to 11.0 per 100,000 in 2021, according to a report published by early Thursday by the CDC. So suicide, and again, it's impacting our children. We're talking about the ages of 10 to 24. So these are things that have really stood out to me, as well as the mass shootings, because that hit close to home. One of our relatives was working during the time of the mass shooting that took place in Dallas in the Outlet Mall. We immediately were making phone calls, and fortunately, she survived. However, there's things that she saw that she cannot unsee. And so looking at ways to get rid of the weapons, assault weapons, because we should not have them on the streets. I was in the military. That's when it should be used. So I think that there are a lot of things concerning that we need to, whether it's protest, whatever the case may be, we need to be more active about saying something about that, because it is too commonplace that on a weekly basis we're seeing mass shootings. So we need to step up and do something. Just like Opal Lee, she made it a point to make sure this federal holiday came to pass. We need more Opal Lees. We need more activists. And we do have a lot of them. The younger generations are very active in the community. We need to make sure that we're doing, like you said, intergenerational impartations to make sure that we are all collectively as a community making a difference.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Alrighty, Craig.
Alrighty, there's several things that comes to mind with this question. One of them being lack of awareness. Lack of awareness, like how many parents in here really knows what's going on with your child? Just lack of awareness of what our brothers and sisters may be feeling. Like you said, with the fentanyl situation, I work on the campus. And it's heartbreaking having to console a child that just watched their best friend be wheeled out unconscious. That's tough. Like, what do you say to a child in that moment? What goes through your mind as a parent when you know you have a child? So lack of awareness, we need to become aware. Let's get out of our own bubbles sometimes. Let's get out of our phones sometimes. Let's put the phones down and have those discussions. Because lack of awareness is really what's killing us. Lack of awareness. How do you not know your child has weapons and they're going to that campus? I know my daughter's location at all times. And when her location's turned off, I call that phone, hey, I would drive 4 hours, don't play with me. Like, don't play with me. Like, don't ever do that. But lack of awareness. As a teacher, there's sometimes I know what's going on in a parent's home before they do. It shouldn't be like that. But not only that, things like critical race theory. We don't want to teach something because we're afraid that it's offensive to somebody. Well, what about the culture that went through it? What about their offense? So critical race theory, that we're seeing, I say, and I'm going to say this, we give our children too many options. Too many options. Until you pay bills, my word is law. That's how my house is. Till you pay the bills, my word is law. But we give them too many options. Because you're offended, I can't tell you, hey, you really shouldn't be saying those words. That's offensive. So lack of awareness, but also that critical race theory, then, also what is happening in our neighboring states. The fact that slavery was recently on the ballot. Yes. How does that happen in 2022? How you put that on the ballot to vote to keep something that's going to, bring us back hundreds of years. Like, how's that on a ballot? How's that on a ballot to vote, hey, can segregation be good again or not? So lack of awareness, like some people don't even know that was going on. Some people don't even know that, hey, in some restaurants, that counties have agreed to it, they're separating, okay, you sit on this side, they're separating already. Lack awareness. So if we can become aware of what's going on around us, then we really can make some change. We can really start really answering questions and getting things done.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Michael.
Yes, they took the words right out of my mouth. I was actually going to say a lot of what they said is as far as like with the drugs with the kids, suicide and things of that nature. Because I've lost some people to that I've been knowing my whole life, and exactly what they said, lack of communication, all of those things. And you don't know until it hits home. So we should probably start having these conversations like yesterday, in my opinion.
Thank you. All right, let's go with Stephanie.
Well, I would say what has stopped me in my tracks is honestly when when an incident is happening like to someone that you know, or it's happening directly to you. That's when it really stops me in my tracks, and especially like when it's happening to someone I know, because it's due like to a stigma. And I think when it's like looking in your face, like when it's on your doorstep, that's when you really can't ignore it, and that's when you really have to take an active role in creating change and advocating for that person who experienced a wrongdoing.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, Alex.
Coming from the policy side and building policy and building structures to provide services for our community, all of the things that they're talking about, and I'm going to go through them real quick because there's a lot of overlapping. When you talked about fentanyl and the lack of awareness, that was a crisis in 2010. It started in Ohio. We've been building data since then. And with that data, what did we do with it as a government, as an educational facility, as law enforcement, as our dais here or our commissioner's court? We did nothing with it. We knew it was a crisis then. We knew where it was coming from. We knew what it was doing to people. We should have had those built systems in place, coming here and taking it seriously, building awareness so that we can mitigate or lessen the effects of what it's doing to our community now. It's building critical thinking, or a lack of critical thinking in a lot of different places that we have. Is we're seeing a crisis now, but this has been a crisis for almost a decade already. And we did nothing about it. And when I say stop chasing the poison, fix the issue. Because the poison changes. It's going to change all the time. We're going to wear ourselves thin. It's a lack of, it's not an effective use of resources, money, people, staff, to keep on chasing the poison. It reverts back to mental health. I wrote the scope of work that finished the needs assessment, mental health needs assessments for Hays County. It was finished in November of this last year. We're currently going through the phases of that and trying to build what those systems are going to be and a facility that's needed in our county. We are a desert of mental health services, especially K through 12 in our county. We know this. We've known this for years. So talk about something stopping you. We have one of the highest suicide rates in our county in the entire state. Clearly, knowing and understanding, having a critical mind and seeing this is a desert of sources of resources for mental health. We have a lack of communication with a lot of these educational systems in our county and government systems in our county, telling us exactly what needs to be done. We know what we need to do. We just need to put those efforts towards it. So then you go back to, there's a lack of transparency, building that forward. There's a lack of community engagement, forcing that policy to happen. And then when you look about changing policy, it's a bipartisan issue. It's going to cost money. But if we're going to say we're trying to protect the most precious resource that we all say is our children, then what's the cost? It's really not a high cost, is it, when you look at it that way? So then you look at it, Nationally, you have George Floyd. What about locally? We have Joshua Wright. We have Sears Gray, right here in our county. We don't need to look nationally. So that's what stops me every day. And when I come to work every day, looking and figuring out ways to build policy, to push this politician or that politician, or going to the Capitol or going to DC or whatever I got to do to make those changes, that's the critical awareness that I bring. Some of them take it, some of them agree with it, and some of them choose to turn the other way. But we can't quit. That's what this is good. That's what these types of panel discussions and discourses excellent for, is to reinvigorate our community and keep on pushing towards that unified goal, unity. Right?
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All righty, Miss Tiffany, you close out this question for us.
One of the things that stops me in my tracks every waking day is school shootings. My question is why? Every day as educators, we wake up, we leave our families, we go into the schools to educate other children, and yet we still have to worry about if it's going to happen to us. My daughter, she's 9, and she's the most lovingest child in the world, and every day I have to leave shirts to come to Kyle to teach other children, and it sickens me to think that is a possibility that if it happens, I'm sorry, getting emotional about it, but there's a possibility that if it happens here, I can't go home. So my question is, why?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate each of you with your passion in regards to this particular question. What is it that stops you in your tracks? I think I'd like to share that question with all of us here who are watching or in the audience. Just in the past 3 years, I'm not even talking about the big picture, just 3 years, what has stopped you in your tracks? And I leave you with this challenge. What has stopped you in your tracks, and what do you think you can do about it? Whether collectively, individually, with your community, with your church, with your civic organization, what can be done in regards to some of the things that have happened in this past 3 years? And I think a couple of people up there said, if you see something, say something. That goes a long ways in regards to what's happening that you can do something about. And it may not be by yourself, it may be with a group, but you're with some group. You're with some group on a daily basis where you can have this kind of conversation. And thank you, Alex, for bringing up the point that having this conversation here where we have an audience, where we have, whether they're here with us or whether they're watching us, that we're able to have some discussion and some dialogue. What's going on? Some things we don't like. Yeah, there's some things going on very locally here that we needed to pay attention to. And there were one or two things that was said. I was like, wait, I didn't know that. Right? So, know that is my question. Who was it that used the term stay woke? Right? And what did that mean? That mean pay attention to your surroundings in regards to the pursuit of happiness, in regards to social justice, in regards to education, in regards to well-being. Well-being is thinking about this idea of how has this virus changed our lives. In regards to human rights, actually well-being also refers to that mental capacity, that things aren't going right and people are choosing to check out as opposed to talking to somebody. And they could have been the next greatest thing, but they didn't have anybody to talk to. So, something to think about. All right, let's see, we're going on. This may be our last question to the panel, but I wanted to put up this question to the mentee. Now, think about this question for a second. I'm going with question number 3, staff. And that one is, what would be your elevator speech to America? What would you say is your hope and wish for this country? Now, what's an elevator speech? You're on the elevator with somebody and you're going from floor 1 to floor 5. There ain't a lot of time. But you have to tell somebody something. What are you going to tell them? And you have to be clear. You can't say it so fast that the person's going to go, what? So what's the elevator speech that you would say in regards to America? What would you say is your hope and wish for this country? That's what Mentee is going to do. Des, you're going to answer this question. What would you like to see the city of Kyle, Texas do to enhance the diversity of its people? That's what I want you to think about. What would you like to see the city of Kyle, Texas do to enhance the diversity of its people? Okay, think about that one. So audience, your question is, what would be your elevator speech to America? What would you say is your hope and wish for this country? And while we're going to have answers popping up on the Mentee, I want to go to our desk, and I would like to see who's interested in answering that question. What would you like to see the city of Kyle, Texas do to enhance the diversity of its people? Okay? And we have almost everybody. So I'm going to start with Michael. Start with you.
Okay, I'd say like a community center, and I only say that because where I'm from, there's a local community center on the black side of town, African American side of town, right? And they have basketball, they have all types of things they offer, even for families that are struggling to feed parents that are struggling to feed their kids. They give out information regarding food and things of that nature. But over the years, I've noticed it's not just a spot for African Americans to go. It's become a big thing because of the things that they offer as far as sports and all of that. Kids that lived in the area would go to school, and then everybody's talking about it. So all the other kids that don't live in that area are like, "Oh, that sounds like fun," or "I want to play." And now, to this day, right now, if you go there, you wouldn't know which side of town it's on because all walks of life are playing in their different sports and activities that they offer. But originally, it was for the black community. But over time, everybody in the town goes there for different things.
Okay.
So,
The community center. Thank
yeah.
you. All right. All righty. Let's go next with Marcie.
I just want to say I love that idea. I was thinking, I guess, more economics in regards to like bringing diversity to the city of Kyle, bring in more diverse jobs that would attract more diversity. I think would be something which I'm seeing that's happening now. We have different companies. I think it was this young lady over here. What's your name again? Stephanie, that was just talking about the pushback some of the locals are getting because of the changes that are transpiring. And I think they're for the good because, you have these larger companies that are coming in that are, it's going to help our economy as well as bring in more jobs for a larger group, the community to be able to have more opportunities. So that's what I was looking at in regards to enhancing the diversity of our people here.
Okay. Thank you. All righty. Craig.
There we go. I knew I was going to get it eventually. There's so much. I like the community center, bringing, companies that do bring diversity and diverse jobs, but also just get involved. I like to see our city continue to get involved. Link up with some of your local churches. Let's get some unity walks going. We talked about mental health. Hey, you got several ministers sitting in the room right now. Link with some of your local churches, get some unity walks going, get some counseling, some free counseling, for Because we talk about mental health, well, one of the problems is we don't get help because basically we can't afford it. People can't afford it. So let's link up and do some things. Let's not just talk about it. Let's be about it.
Okay. Thank you. Stephanie?
Okay. Well, for me, I'm thrilled that within the Arts and Cultural Commission that we use the word cultural, which means almost that like we're required to have cultural events and the acknowledgement of different groups within our city. And I do, however, want to say that before that, we had different volunteer organizations and clubs that would put on events, and I would love to see them working with the Arts and Cultural Commission to put on different events and help make these events even bigger and better. And furthermore, this one I think is really important, and it may be just a little bit controversial, but I really would like to see our elected representatives and potential candidates at these events regardless if it's an election year or not. And I think it's really important, and the ones that do actively go to events, we definitely see you and appreciate you. I think that those are real leaders. But to the other ones, if they really do care about these different groups within Kyle, then I think that showing their support in these events while they're in office is truly really important. And when they don't, I think it sends a pretty negative message on their part and for our community. And I think it's really special to be able to talk to the city council, mayor, commissioners, judges, and school board trustees, like in an informal setting. And I think that's the best way to show their support for increasing diversity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Alex?
Well, again, I've been privileged to be sitting on this dais and create the frameworks and some of the opportunities that we've had for cultural awareness, whether it's Hispanic Heritage Month or working with different groups for Juneteenth and in the community and building those, writing those proclamations. I know that they haven't changed a lot of the writings. They're still reading the same one that, and that makes me feel good when I listen to it. And the pandemic has really changed our ability to engage. I mean, even though I'd be working late at night, I still keep track, and the council members still know that I still stay engaged because they hear commentary from me. But one of the things that I think really promotes the enhancement of diversity is the city engaging in a historical preservation plan so that we can have the framework of where the diversity really sits throughout the city. I think it brings a sense of legacy and pride, and people gravitate to those areas that they have an affinity to, that they can relate to. And what does that look like? Once you identify those places, and it's arts and culture, I mean, it's having sculptures there, it's having markers there so that people can read and understand that those indelible footprints that the diversity of this city has been for decades, really. But then also, one of the other things that I've always pushed as an elected official here, or as the county chief of staff, or even as a law enforcement officer, is understanding how do we promote diversity in business ownership in our communities. And I've asked that question of not only of our city then and really challenged them, but also with our chamber and our economic development corporation and everything, all those individuals there on a regular basis. Okay, what are we doing to promote women business owners, small business owners in our communities? What are we doing? Because number one, they're the number one growth rate in business and commerce in the world. What are we doing to promote that here for small business owners? What type of incentives are we creating for that? Where are we putting those businesses? And what kind of programming and initiatives do we have in place? I know what this city has. I know we can do more. I'm sure the people on the dais that facilitate those funds and promote that can say that we need to do more. I sit at I go to the commissioners' courts every Tuesday, every other Tuesday when they have them, first and third Tuesday. And those things are also questions that we ask on a regular basis. Why are we not captivating or harnessing all of that energy and power to affect economic improvements in our community. And women, what are we doing? Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, thank you very much. Let us go to the mentee and see what elevator speeches did we see created on that screen. See what was written. Okay, got a couple of things. That might have been the guacamole person. Okay, so now they're making us hungry. Okay, all right. Let's take a look and see what we have here. We have some others coming up. All right, I was just taking the time to read some of the quick elevator speeches. The one that popped up to me, and I'll ask you guys, do you see one that you want to comment on? I'm looking at the one that says, "Our American history is not perfect, and neither are we. Let's embrace it, learn from it, and from each other too. This is how we can create the change we want to see." That one popped up at me. All right. Did anybody else see one that popped up at them they want to comment on? Alex?
Live the golden rule and embrace diversity. I mean,
Yeah.
we've lost that in many different areas throughout our communities, the golden rule.
Golden rule.
I think we need to continue to promote it. I think we can't say it enough.
Okay. And those of us are saying the golden rule is do unto others if you will have them do unto you, right? So that's pretty simple. If you don't want it done to you, then don't do it to anybody else. And yeah, that one we seem to have lost is in my eyes. Anybody else? Tiffany?
The one in the middle, to be able to walk outside and go someplace and feel like I could be, is that unlive, due to the color of my skin. That one stands out to me. When I first moved here, I worked in a school district. The school I worked at, I was the only African-American teacher there. And so that was interesting enough for me. Needless to say, I no longer work at that school due to some personal issues with me being the only black teacher there. When other parents that looked like me wanted to talk to me, and by me not being an administrator, the admin had issues with that. So I didn't really care too much for that. So now I work at a school where there's more people like me that looks like me, and there's kids there that look like me as well. And so I can relate to them, and I can have conversations with them, whereas I understand where they're coming from. I joined, when I first moved to Texas, I joined a group called Black Girls Magic of San Antonio and Austin. And that kind of gave me a sense of there are other people here like me, other women here like me as well. So I can relate to that. That kind of stood out to me a lot, being able to go out and see other people that looks like me and not being the only one. So.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Craig, you had one? Would you go back to the whole screen, please? Okay.
Yes, the one that stood out to me was further at the top, where it says to grow that godly hope for the future and to love on each other at all times, whether happy with each other or not. We all know what hope is, not giving up. Are we there yet? No, but don't give up. Have hope for the future. Hope for, yes, it's going to get better, but also love. Love, that's that tough word, that big love that we don't, that big word we don't see all the time. Love, what does love look like? To understand love, we first must understand what love is not. Because love will say, hey, because I love you, I'm not going to do this. Because I love you, I'm not going to say these things towards you. Because I love you, this is what I'm going to do. Because I love you, I'm going to empathize with what you're going through. So that's the one that stuck out to me. Whether I'm happy with you or not, I can be mad at you. But because I love you, there's just some things I won't say to you because I love you. So that's a big thing. If we can get to, I call it a love evolution. We can get to a love evolution and really love people in spite of what their beliefs are, in spite of, their lifestyles, their age. And we can really get to that part. Love people, just love people.
Okay.
We can really do some things.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else had anything they wanted to talk about on the Menti? Okie doke. Well, we are getting close to our departing hour. It's almost 8:30. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for agreeing to sit on that desk and share with us your thoughts, your likes, your dislikes, your hopes. I appreciate it so much because I think, as someone has said earlier, when we're able to sit together and have conversations that are kind of uncomfortable, it makes all the difference in the world, because the way to make a conversation or a topic uncomfortable, too comfortable, is to have a conversation about it, right? We don't do anything about it, nothing gets done about it. But when we actively say we're going to do something and then we actually do it, it makes all the difference in the world. I can say that about the Peace and Progress Dialogue because we've been doing this since 2020. And one of the things that was said, I think after the first or second one, will this continue? And we've been making it happen. And I must say that the communication staff, this is one of their projects, making this happen is to get different perspectives up in front of everyone. We're trying to call as many people as we can to the table to say, come talk, come talk. And so I challenge you in the audience that the next go round, when the call comes out, to be a part of this Peace and Progress Dialogue. You click on that button and you fill out that form and you say, I want to come talk. I want to come to the table. I have something to say. And if at any point in time, if someone would say, well, I've got to add one more thing, or something you didn't talk about that I want to talk about, we're open to do that also. Bring it forth and let's talk about it. I am so pleased, and I thank each of you so much for taking your time. This evening is Friday. You've been working all week, I know, and it's hot outside, but yet you're here and you're willing to share with us your thoughts, and I so appreciate every single one of you. And I hope you had a good time and you were, this was worth doing. We want to keep this dialogue going, and when something comes up that's not good, it's uncomfortable, that we'll have an opportunity to bring it here and say, you know what happened 3 months ago? I want to talk about that. And let's talk about it, right? And we're giving the audience an opportunity to come in and talk about it also. And so, audience, if you say, well, I don't want to be on that up front with all of those people, but I do have something I want to say, you can easily send an email to our communications team and say, here's something y'all need to talk about the next time, because y'all should have talked about this. Well, you know how you talk about it? You come up there and you say what you need to say, but send us some information and let us know. So again, thank you so much. It's about 8:30. I wanted to remind everyone that we actually started off at 6 p.m., allowing our citizens to come to City Hall to go and take a look at some paintings that are on the walls of City Hall. They are brand new. They were literally painted 3 weeks ago. And they're perspectives of the historic depot across the street. If you have not had a chance to go to the depot, anyone out there, and you're here in town, do go check it out, because it was based on somewhere between 1917 and 1961. Now, what's interesting about the depot, which kind of connects us to here, that's where I'm going, is that depot was segregated between 1917 and 1961. And they chose to rebuild it and make it show how it was segregated. So there'll be some things that you'll go in there and see that will slightly offend you. And if it does offend you, good. Because what you going to do about it? Right? What you going to do about it? So a good talking piece. I actually was with someone in there, and she's read that, and she says, I'm offended. And I said, good. You should have been. Now imagine the folks that was geared towards back in the day. Okay. So anyway, thank you, audience. I appreciate it for coming out. Thank you. I would like to say thank you, Commissioner Tobias. Yay, Commissioner, I'm sorry, City Councilman Tobias, wave your hand. He's here tonight. Thank you so much for supporting us. A special thanks to the communications team for the City of Kyle. We couldn't do this without you, and I know y'all know that. Thank you so much. So at this time, we are going to end our program, and the plan is that we'll have another one in September. So look for that announcement if you're interested in being up on the dais as these folks were tonight and be able to say your piece. Thank you. Have a good night.